again, and fire's ready.
Okay, so I was researching supply and demand. So we'll start off with what is it overall. So it is the backbone of economy, which is why you probably had me going first, because it is very important to know. That's the definition. I won't read it out loud because you can read it yourself. The demands itself, you can see right here. So it's the product that like people want, like it's the desire that like people want it. So like if the price, you can see here, if the price is higher, the quantity will be lower because not very many people will want to spend that kind of amount of money on something that is so high priced. But then, which I'll get into more later, the demand will go down depending if there's a higher quantity and there's a lower price, which sounds very confusing, but it actually is not. So then the supply, which is this line, it's how much the market can offer or produce, and it will usually refer to the amount of a certain good producers are willing to produce at a certain price. So like people want to be producing a lot when they have a higher price because they will end up making more of a profit, which is kind of where you kind of have to figure out how high the demand is and how high you want to supply, because it can get like, you can either oversupply or have an over demand, which I will get more into later. Okay, so the law of demand itself. So there are many factors that can end up like affecting the law of demand. Like let's just say for San Francisco, it's kind of the rainy season. More people will want to be buying like umbrellas, and so the price or the demand of umbrellas will go up. Or for overproduction or like pricing, if the pricing is higher, less people will want to buy something. And also just overall seasonal effects to anywhere you go. More people will be buying like warmer jackets when it is during the winter time, while during the summer, more people will be buying like sunscreen. And so you can see that the more the demand, the higher you price it. So as up here, like more people will want something that is higher priced, but a lot of people won't end up buying it. And so it's usually downward sloping, which is kind of confusing because you think that like because it's lower, if there's a higher quantity and a lower price, more people will want to buy it. But there's kind of different effects that can come into play. There's one called the substitution effect that will, changes the price and motivates people to buy products at a lower price. There's the income effect, that when prices go down, people will want to buy more, but the biggest thing that causes this kind of like slope downwards is called the law of diminishing marginal utility, which is when continuing to use a certain product, you're going to get bored of it. So let's just say for milk, people will want to buy more milk if it's cheaper than like say orange juice or like almond milk or something along the lines of that. But then the price will have to go down because people will get bored of it and end up kind of moving to something else. So if the price goes down, then more people will continue to buy it because they're like, oh, it's cheaper than everything else. Which is why it causes this like decrease in slope, because it will, your quantity will stay up, but your price will also have to go down in order to kind of continue producing and getting money from people for milk. So the more the goods cost, the lower the quantity, as not as many people are going to want to spend that kind of money. So this reflects the willingness of consumers to purchase more of a product at a lower price. So let's just say for fashion kind of things, like different designer brands, like the price, they don't sell that many, but because the price is so high, the demand is also very high because a lot of people want that kind of like symbol of like good quality things. While like if you go to kind of like convenience stores or like kind of like H&M or something, they have a lot of like quantity of specific things, but because the demand isn't that high, like they have to set the price lower so that people will still continue to buy these products. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So going next, we have the law of supply. So there's also factors for the supply, like how much producers will want to actually produce. It can come from if they have to substitute products, if they like the product to technology is either like more advanced so it costs more money, or like depending on that. And then availability and also the cost of the labor, because depending on where you are, the cost of labor, like in San Francisco, the minimum wage is $15. Depending on where, like China, I don't know how much it is, but like in different spaces in the world. It can be male or less, and so trying to find that relationship. And then other factors can change the amount of product that can be released, but those are like the main ones. And then so analyzing supply involves looking at the relationship between the difference in price and quantity. So you can see these two axes. So it's similar to demand in the sense that you can only, like, the factors, like the upward slope will reflect the willingness to produce, for the producer to sell more when its price is higher, which like doesn't come into play with like demand yet, because like producers think like, oh, if there's a higher price, like, oh, let's make more because like more people will buy it in a sense, but that still doesn't come into the idea of like people don't want to spend like $1,000 on like a backpack, not usually. So that's why kind of the supply ends up in some way going down for the producer, because they don't want to be making cheap products. They'd rather be making really high-end products that they get more money out of. So let's see. So there's also a thing called time and supply, and this kind of can go into any play where a lot of people, like when making a product, it takes months plus to actually produce that product. So you have to think about when like you're a producer of something, like what is going to be in style when it's actually going to be out. So let's say like makeup brands, it will take them about like a year or so to create like a palette or like some kind of foundation or something. But because like it's so far in advance, you never know exactly what's going to happen. And like something that you're making right now could be out of style in like 5 months. And so they kind of have to think if those like kind of in style things will be temporary or permanent, which is something that can kind of get confusing because you really don't know with time. Okay, so the next slide. So equilibrium. So this is only can be reached in theory. It's actually really hard because there are so many factors to it. Pretty much like supply and demand, as you can see, will come hand in hand. If the demand is higher, then the supply will/can not only increase, but more product will possibly be created. So like, let's say the demand is kind of like right here, like a lot of people want like a certain product, maybe like an umbrella because it's raining a lot, but the supply might not be as much as the demand, so there will be like an over amount of demand and like a shortage in product, which is disequilibrium, which I will get into later. And so finding the perfect quantity and price with resulting balance between the demand and the supply is called equilibrium. So if you have the perfect amount of supply and the perfect amount of demand where everyone gets the amount like that they want, and there's like no one that doesn't have the product and they want it, or there's like not an overproduced like production in the product, that's the equilibrium. You can see also like price and quantity come into play there because it will kind of show the price, and we will also be playing a game later, so you'll be able to figure that like the equilibrium a little bit better. And so this only can be reached in theory because there are so many different effects. One person might not want something one day but want it the next day, and so like a lot of equilibrium can only be very temporary, and usually it's for a very short amount of time. Okay, so disequilibrium, I'm saying that right. So there can be excess supply and excess demand. So for this one, it is an excess supply. So if the prices are set too high in the beginning and there's too much produced already, it can create within the economy like too much product being made, and so a lot of people that make produce, like they're gonna have to sell it at a lower price in the end, because it's better to sell the product at a lower price than just not sell the product at all, because it takes money to actually make the product in the first place. And so the supply, price, and quantity will be higher than the demanding, and it will result in more supply, like I said. And then for excess demand, when the price is created too low and the demand is too high, or like price is created too low and the quantity is a lot lower than it should be, and the demand is a lot higher, then it will end up creating like excess in demand. So not like a lot of people will buy the product, and end up not getting the product because they can't, because there's not enough quantity. Kind of like, this is how a lot of brands actually get like people coming back more. Like, let's just say like a lot of streetwear brands will do the thing of like Off-White or something, or Supreme, they do the thing of they'll only have like a certain amount of things, and so they'll sell those things, and then because the demand is so much higher than the actually like the products that they have, it'll end up being marked up like from the people that actually bought it in the first place, so that like more people will be, the product like will continue to be sold, but it'll just be a higher price. And so that, does that make sense? Yes, okay. So, let's see. So do you guys have any questions before we get into the game? I just wanted to go over everything quickly just because the game I feel like helps explain and helps you learn a lot before. No? Okay. Yes?
Yeah, you talked about how a lot of companies choose to sell stuff cheaper, but how do companies kind of do that if they recognize they're not going to make a profit off of that?
Well, it's kind of a thing of what I think I mean, like what I'm hearing what you're saying is like when it's, that's the confusing thing of like excess, like you don't know exactly how many people are going to want a product, and so you kind of have to estimate. I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people who actually do this as like their job can do this a lot better than I would, but like you have to figure out how much people are going to want it, and then also then produce that amount. And if you overproduce, then you're going to have to like lower the price, because like if you don't sell the product at all because a high, like no one's going to want to buy like something that's $1,000 that should be like, that isn't in high demand. And so you have to lower the price so you at least make a little bit of that profit back. Because if you don't sell it at all, you won't be making any money, and you probably will be losing money, like more money than you'd if you'd sell it at a lower price. Any more questions? Okay, so we're gonna play a game. It might be a little bit confusing. Hold on, I need it also. So it's called the Pearl game. I do not have pearls. I am sorry, but we can use pennies because we were able to. And so how many people were in the room? Because I did this for the amount of people that I actually. Okay, so can we put like about 7 people on this side, 7 people on the other side? So pretty much we'll have buyers and sellers. These sellers are going to want to sell their pearl. We'll put, so like it should be like about 7 on each side if possible. And then if one, yeah, about, yeah. I think 6, yeah. 6, okay, yes, I think 6 on each side because Callie's not here. So the sellers are going, pretty much what you want to do is you want to try to make as much money as you can as a seller, and then as a buyer, you want to be able to kind of not use as much money. So the first round, so just left, so it might be a little bit hard to do. I'll just explain it though. So we pretty much what we'll do is the sellers, I'll have the sellers on this side, will be trying to, like you guys will be bargaining back and forth to have a price book of you guys. The sellers will have a minimum, the buyers will have a maximum that they're willing to go, but neither of you guys will actually know the stock, like the price that you're willing to go, which will show and help like maximize the profit that both sides are able, or like both sides, like the sellers are able to make, and make sure that you guys don't oversell or overbuy something. And then, so once Nina comes back, then we'll like come together, and then I will tell the sellers how much they like have to, like the minimum they have to sell it for, and I will tell the buyers the maximum they have to buy, or like the maximum they can go, like they can't go past that number. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, sorry, yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not about the game though, kind of about the game.
Okay.
So what law kind of relates the dynamic between the producers of the product?
So it's kind of, well, I think of it is like, we'll get into it because there's going to be 4 rounds, but in the end, there will be rounds where you'll have either more sellers or more buyers, and it'll show the excess of supply or the excess of demand, depending on how much product is around. Okay, well, I don't know. Okay, so here you on this side. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do penny. These are your pearls. Pretend they're pearls because I'm sorry I cannot actually get pearls. Okay, so,
I think I'll forgive you too.
once Leo comes back and I'll get some more. And so I'm going to tell you guys the amount you have to sell it for I'll tell you guys the maximum, and once Nina comes back in, then we'll set, like, I'll tell
Be
you
the
what to do.
maximum we're willing to pay.
Yeah. And so then what we're gonna do is, once you guys sell your pearl, you're gonna let me know, and then so we're gonna figure out by adding them all together and dividing them by 6, because there's 6 pearls in total, that will show the equilibrium and show kind of like the middle pricing, which is kind of like the pricing that people would probably want to sell it at, but not actually. Okay, so everyone come your sellers. Okay, buyers come here. Sorry. Oh, there's 5 people.
Nina's in the bathroom.
Okay. But you don't want to go, like, you want to try to make sure you don't buy it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So because there's 5 and 5, it actually might make more sense if we just start now, because I don't know if, like, it might be a little bit different. So you guys can go talk to each other. Oh. So sellers try to sell it, buyers try to buy it. And it's better for you guys to buy it and sell it, because you will end up losing more money if you don't buy or sell it. Just FYI. So start negotiating.
I know you want this pearl. Look at this.
It's 1981.
You really want this pearl.
I double, triple dare you.
I will hop on this.
I have a bunch of ones that go.
I think we can sell and work with that.
30?
This is really
That's
rare.
awesome. 23.
I'm thinking 90.
90. Well, I was talking to the other pearl guy down the street.
Sounds like a plan.
He was selling it for $50. So
Low quality. Low quality.
$99.
Take a look at this. Take a look at that.
$99.
Like, doesn't that just scream out to you like classic?
Okay, I have my pearl. I want it.
copper.
Okay, sure.
Nick Face.
A little bit of nickel.
$22 maybe. 27.
I'm gonna go talk to the guy.
Slim Today 87. I'm all out. Sold out.
Yeah, $27.
Much too many
Wait.
over here. $50.
Gosh, I heard that in a video.
We're both doing this. Come on, $50.
$50. I'm how about 52?
Good luck, man.
A 52. I'll take it.
All right.
Cool.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Oh, mine was 25. 25, yeah, I think.
How do I get ripped
Yeah,
off?
It's high quality.
Okay, so this actually was pretty good. You guys didn't like go as far as some groups have, because the group that I watched, they actually like went up a lot higher, like because the maximum price for the buyers was actually $300. So
Yeah.
and the minimum price was $20 for the sellers. So there's definitely usually, and like this is still a pretty like big change, but like there will usually be a lot more outliers. Like the 75 is definitely an outlier, but you guys actually did pretty good. So pretty much, if we were to divide it, I mean by 5, because there's 5 pearls in total, then it would show the equilibrium.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm-
That's sad. So that would show the equilibrium amount, and this would also show like, because there are 5 buyers, 5 sellers, it kind of comes into the supply and demand, because all of you guys want to buy it and all of you guys are supplying the specific amount. Okay, so the next round is, okay, who are the sellers this round? That just, or the sellers that just have the pearl now. So we're gonna switch it up, so the sellers are gonna become buyers, buyers are gonna become sellers. Are you guys buyers? Okay, so
I have a pearl in my pocket.
sellers come here.
Well,
Excuse me.
Then I
counterfeit.
Okay, yeah, so,
Wait, docs for this.
hi. Oh, wait. Are you tired? Yeah. You need to go to the bathroom. You have your pearl. What? Oh, it's over there. Jared, did I see you pulling out a penny?
Yeah, I have like a bunch
bunch of knockoffs right here.
Okay.
They're not worth
Okay,
anything though, so I don't.
That's not gonna be a part of the
No, 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 no.
thing at the
I'm
moment.
not gonna put it in circulation.
Okay.
You can trust me.
Oh my god, you have this going on.
Seller.
You guys are also trying to combine you're trying to sell money. Okay. On it. Negotiate.
But no.
But yes.
I cannot.
Okay, so then
Alright.
Minus 5, which is 65.
No,
And you got something for sale though.
Fine, I can do 67.
Other business are sold for
Alright. 75.
I don't like number 8.
Alright, there we go.
So we're gonna do 68.
6 represents health.
Fine, 70.
Yay.
70.
Okay, so as you can tell, the numbers are, like you guys kind of are understanding it, the numbers are, for the most part, a lot closer. 700 is a little bit better, but definitely better than 75. So the next round we're gonna do is who are the sellers? You guys are the sellers? They're the sellers? Okay, so guys, what I'm gonna do, oh my gosh, okay, this might be a little, okay, wait.
Where's Nino?
5 people, so I'm gonna take, so there has been a virus and pearls have died, or are not being produced as much. So I'm gonna take 3 of your
Ocean
pennies.
acidification, people.
Yes.
These gems are not there.
Okay, so for round 3, pretty much, like, if you don't sell the pearl, and if you don't sell the pearl, and if you don't buy the pearl, you will be losing more money. You will be losing $1,000 than if you actually, excuse me. That's not a pearl, that's like.
It's a Supreme Pearl.
Okay, so, I will tell the, so, you guys are the sellers, yeah. Okay, so you are buyers now. Yeah.
Oh.
So you guys are buyers.
Bye-bye.
So as you can, you guys see what's going on here a little bit? There's a lot more buyers and the demand is a lot higher than the.
Hi guys.
Like, yeah.
Genius bars for intense.
Okay.
I dropped the pearl. It's cracked, sorry.
Yeah. But the thing is, think about this though. If you don't buy the pearl, you will be losing $1,000.
Wait, or just
How does
because
that make sense? Just because it's.
Okay.
Well, so it's like, it's a thing of, because production, like you want to have it more than, because you could sell it for more than what.
Oh. So it's like you're
Like,
losing
so-
it.
But so like, your maximum in a sense, I'll just say it so that it makes a little bit more sense. Hopefully you guys still get the like aha moment, but like you want to buy it. Like no matter it, like, because you will be losing more money if you don't buy it. Okay. Okay.
$300.
Hey,
Highest bidder. Highest bidder. Highest
Okay,
bidder.
yeah, there's
10.
$300.
I
Alright.
know, let's switch it around.
300.
No, higher. Come on, I'm
$29.99. $5
$5.
We got 300 so far.
We got
Okay, guys, listen. Yeah, Alex did say 300.
Anybody
Because
higher.
you have, like, it's better
Okay.
just buy
Next
something
highest bidder.
for $100. I know, but you have to go over your maximum.
140. 140
You
to the
still have,
to the
you
back guy.
170. You have to go over your maximum.
170.
325. Oh, but you still, okay, you still have to go over your maximum. Wait, hold on. You guys will be losing more money, so if you have to, like, make your maximum more as a buyer, you can.
I cannot.
329.
450.
450.
451.
451.
540.
540.
541.
541.
$3.
640.
640.
30.
641
Oh my
once.
god.
Are you ready?
$50.
641. We got 641
Well, that's
in the back.
awesome. What was yours?
2 to the this guy.
Okay. Alright.
650. 740. Gosh.
Alright, 29.
741 once.
741.
741.
20, oh dang.
741 going once. 741 going twice.
741
oh,
29.
five. 741.
741.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
6.
741 oh, 6.
800.
What?
840.
840.
841.
841. 900. I'm tired, so you get it.
So 900, okay.
900. He's up for 30?
Yeah.
Wait,
So- this was a little bit of a confused because usually, so pretty much what you're supposed to get is like you have to, like you're going to have to go more than your max because you'd be losing actually more money if you didn't go above your max. So like, let's just say if like yes, their max was $30. Well, their minimum was $130. So it kind of because the demand is a lot higher, they can raise the prices. So pretty much the thing is, what like the aha moment is, you should just take a penny.
No.
Pretty much like the idea is like, if you don't buy it, it's going to be like you're gonna lose $1,000. But if you buy it for $300, you're still going to lose less than you'd lose otherwise. Does that make sense? Okay. So no, wait. Did I hear no? Okay. So round 4. This is the final round. This is just to show the other side of when there is a higher supply than there is a demand. So what I'm going to do is the 3 people that lost it, gonna get it back. So you guys are gonna have a pearl. I have a pearl. You're gonna have a pearl, and then 2 more of you guys are going to have a pearl. Okay, so you guys go back to the seller side, and I will tell the buyers how much they're willing to buy.
It's on my buyer now.
I just sold right there.
Oh wait, no.
Isn't it even again?
No, you guys should still be on.
Oh, we should have.
Yeah, you should.
Cool.
Right. We should have 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
It's a style. It's a choice.
Yeah. Stress.
You guys
It's
felt
just
stressed.
It's deconstructed. It's like routine.
Think about what we just did,
Yeah.
or because there's a higher supply than there's a demand, what will you have to do?
With the-
Because you will, if you don't sell it, you will be
with-
losing $1,000. Okay? Talk,
$50.
negotiate.
No.
50.
Yes.
Anybody? $20.
$49.99.
Yeah, no.
Hey,
25.
Emma, $29.99.
Alex, I got 25.
I got you. That's a good team.
25.
$15. 18.
Yeah, 5.
Oh.
Do you want a second pearl?
No. Do you want a second one? Look, it's so shiny. Okay.
$5.
99 cents.
Everyone sold it already.
Well,
Can you get twice?
you want to?
Can you get 2?
Okay, so can you guys, what do you guys see here, kind of like the whole, like, you're gonna, don't look at this one looks a little bit, but with a higher, pretty much, so we messed the entire thing up. With a higher supply, or with a higher demand than there is a supply, the price will go up because the production, like they'll see that, oh, the demand's really high. A lot of people can't because pearls are such a hard thing to come by. It's like, they'll raise the price in order to make more money. And then so for round 4, you're able to see that because the demand is so much lower than the actual supply, they'll have the production will have to end up lowering their prices in order to just sell it because they lose more money if they wouldn't sell it. And then this shows the equilibrium. Like this will show like, and then these are kind of just to show like the equilibrium and like what the best point is to buy it. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any last questions before we are done? Okay, thank you guys.